Okay, so we stopped at the game has started template. So we will start by understanding what are these, how are they working, how is it possible. One thing I must mention is that how Angular works, it uses something called change detection. It is out of the scope of this tutorial, but I will let you just understand. When I tell you like 1 plus 1, you will get to know 1 plus 1 is 2. Yeah, you give me the answer as 2. If I tell you 2 plus 2, you now expect to give a different answer. That's how change detection also works in Angular. Whenever it detects, like I will just write it here, 1 plus 1 equals to equals to 2. Yeah, I tell you no, now tell me 2 plus 2 is equals to what? It's like implicitly you're detecting the change, that the variables x and y, they have changed. X and y, they have changed, and now you need to calculate the new value. With Angular it's the same. However, whenever these variables, whenever they change, it's this Angular component depends on them to decide how to render the UI. So when this change, it will actually push them to the next change detection cycle so that they are actually updated and the UI gets to be updated. It's that simple. So that's why you see when we change here, like we start sweeping, we have first of all changed the state. Yeah, the way we explained here. On game start, we actually generate possible tiles. You realize this is a private method. We do all the calculations first, and then before the UI is updated, we have data to show. So we say game has started is true. This is a public method. So with this one, we start sweeping, we do this calculation here, and then after that we start sweeping, we will have the UI updated. And one thing you note is that the timer is also kicking in, because it is ticking each and every time it ticks. Thanks to the binding and thanks to the change detection, everything is working as expected. So that's how it works. Like these parameters, they are actually, that's how they get to be updated. So a change here is actually reflected here. Yeah, so we already talked about the ng container, and then the other thing we need to show is now the game over this screen. Yeah, you see game over screen, and then still on. What is happening? Yeah, we have generated generated tiles. At some point we generated the tiles here. So these tiles that we generated, they are only available when the game is being played. So when the screens are not there, when the tiles are not there, the game over screen will be shown. Otherwise, we will see the game is still on. So you realize it's just the same, like it's just the same as how it works in the ng container here at the top. So we continue, we say game over whenever nothing is there. Otherwise, we show game is still on, and that's it. Yeah, that's the whole loop, and that's actually, you have now understood so many concepts. One concept is the two-way data binding. The other way is the imports, how standalone components works. So here we will begin our timer. This is what we are saying, like time remaining is what we'll see. We retry, time remaining, it's 8 seconds. So it will continue to be deducted. So each and every tick here. So actually, let's make this interesting, and then we say, let's just console log here. Is the time remaining, and then before we save, let's just inspect here. Okay, let's have it as up to that. So we focus on this part 8. So you see it, the change in the component is actually reflected in the HTML, and that's it. You have now been able to see like how we can actually bind something from the component into the HTML. Okay, so when it reaches 0, we have the ability to say, okay, the game is over now, like nothing can continue from here. So how about we now get to see, what if I get to solve these things before the game ends. Yeah, that's when now the playing starts. So as a user, we have the follow like the game is still on, so we have ng4. What is ng4? ng4 is basically a directive. Yeah, and actually we get to understand something about these directives: ng4, ngif, forms module, ng class. So ng4 is what you will need. You remember when we removed this directive, we were not able to see this component. So let's remove this. We will not be able to see the item. So you depend on the ng4 to do something for you. You need to import it. Yeah, and that is what it does. You cannot use for loop at the time of this writing. You cannot use for loop in the component as usual. Yeah, maybe that can be done in React but not in Angular, but here you can be able to do ng4. That is what this is actually provided for you by default with Angular. And then each item you are going to be looping through is actually going to be an object of tile. You remember our tile definition? It will be of this format. So when I click, I will be clicking at the referenced object, which is a tile. And you remember how JavaScript works? It passes by reference. So if I change something, if I change this, the value itself will change. So what I mean by that is, let's go to this section on user attempt, this part, and then we say console log. Let's log once again. So many logs. So if we say this, let's try and do this. You see, so it's clicked true, but it was false at the start. So with this simple example, you get to realize that you have now hooked and a click event like that passes a value. Before we didn't pass any values, but this is how you get to pass a value from an Angular component HTML to an Angular TypeScript file, and then you do anything you need with that. You increase the points, you do all these things, and then finally you decide whether the user has cleared the minefield. If the user has cleared the minefield, then it's a game over. So here we'll come and say if this is true, because it's a boolean, we call game over. So let's try again. Okay, I didn't do that well. I scored a 0. Okay, so if the player has, if this dot player points. Okay, so that's just it. And then after, at the end, like now we have on user attempt, then we come and we say, this is the check that we are making. Remember, nothing is different. You know, we just have ng container. Is it a bomb? Show a bomb. Is it a word? Show a word. And that's it. So these two things, these things that you see, the curly brackets, this is what is called interpolation. You get to render something from TypeScript in your HTML. So it's like two curly brackets and the value here. So I believe I didn't mention that, but now you understand what it is. Yeah. Otherwise, if it has not been clicked, so here we have tile is clicked, has been clicked, then we show the click component, which can be a bomb. We show up. So you realize indirectly we have a nested for loop here. Yeah, I mean, sorry, a nested if. There's a nested if that is going on here. So basically, you would have gone in a very, very different approach had you used ng ifs, but with ng container, it's so simple and straightforward. And yes, I believe that's it. So if you have any questions or if anything was not clear, just let me know and I'll be happy to answer. And feel free to check out the code. I'll be pushing it and I'll be sharing a link to GitHub, and then you can just check it out and let me know what you think. Okay, thank you.